All right, everyone, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Strip Club on this cold, dreary California day. May gray. Well, we got, what, May gray and June gloom. But July fry. And then all the way to October summer, right? Because, yeah, it stays warm here long. So we have a new strip club to show you. I'm really excited to show this one to you because, you know, I'm excited every month to show these to you. This one is called Sea Stars, and it's sea as an ocean, not seeing stars. Every time I say it, I think, oh, seeing stars. The reason I named it Sea Stars, it's kind of patterned after the classic ocean waves pattern. Do you see it? Yeah. But we've added stars in it to make it a little more interesting. You want to see how it comes together? Yes. Okay. This pattern that you see up here and the way the pattern is written, it uses all 2.5-inch strips and then adds borders. So the magic in this pattern is playing with the values of your strips to create the effect. There are 4 different fabric groupings that you will create. If you're using scrappy fabric, you will take your strips and sort them into 4 groupings. We have a light grouping. Do you see the light? It looks like background. Now, we have lights shining on here, so you probably can't see, but in these prints is a little ditzy light on light. So they are actually screen printed. It's not just a white background. It's a low volume. Thank you. The assist from the audience. Low volume. Light, and then we have medium. Our mediums in here are sort of the greens and the pinks. And we have 2 darks. The 2 darks form the 2 different stars. We have, in this case, a pink and then a teal. Those become our 2 darks. The pattern by Cozy Quilt Designs, available at your local quilt shop. Shameless plug. The pattern will tell you how many strips you need, but if you don't want to use strips, you can start with yardage. Now, starting with yardage allows you more flexibility when you're putting your fabrics together. So you can start with strips. For example, if you find a pack of light strips, you can make those your lights. Then you can buy yardage for your medium, and then they will be all the same fabric. Or you can buy yardage for either your dark A or your dark B. Now, in our case, dark A is a couple of different prints, all of the same color, but you can see they've got a little movement to them. If you really want your stars to pop out, buy yardage, make them all the same color. Then they will become 1 star unit. You can do that for either dark A or dark B or your medium or your light. So what I'm telling you is you can do any combination of strips and yardage, all strips or all yardage. If you choose to do all yardage, it will be a 4-color quilt. And by yardage, I mean all the same color. You buy running yardage, and then from there, you cut your 2.5-inch strips. So there are options. But if you're starting with, well, in our case, we deliberately picked fabrics off our floor that we could group into lights, into mediums, into dark A, and into dark B. It was a very specific choice. If you're starting with a strip bundle, you can sort into those groupings. So for example, this is the second thing I've dropped today. I must have butterfingers. So here I have some strips. These are from a Hoffman strip pack. As you take your strips, you know you have to separate them into these 4 groups. You don't have to say, well, here, let me rephrase. You might look at that and say, I know, they're laughing because I dropped yet another thing. And I will pick it up in a moment. Okay, I'll pick it up now. This is clearly a light. We agree?
Yes.
Depending on your strips, I would imagine this is clearly a dark. This is what? A dark. And look, there are two different darks. So for this pack, we have established a dark A and a dark B. And now we'll build from here. This is our light. And then we take another strip, and what would this be? It could be a medium, unless you have strips that are darker, then those become your medium. So really, you don't have to have strict definitions of your value. If a light is lighter, it becomes a light. If a fabric is a little darker, it might become a medium, it might be a dark. You can play. That's actually the beauty of the quilt and actually what creates sort of the watercolor effect. It sort of blends into each other. I would advise whatever you use for the light has nice contrast, that sort of defines the wave pattern because the light will come together right here. So there's a lot of possibilities. You can use just about any strip bundle as long as you can sort it into these groupings. The technique is very simple. So I'm going to talk a little bit about staying organized. The first thing I did, I looked at the pattern. Okay, I wrote it, so I understood it, but I still have to reread it, just like I have to reread it when I'm looking at you guys. The first thing I did was decide what size I'm going to make and how to sort my strips, and then I put them into bundles. So this bundle is dark B, and I'll fan them out so you can kind of see. This bundle is dark A. Clearly, I'm using strips different than the one on the wall. This bundle is a medium. It's so pretty. And then, of course, we need the light. Pretty, right? All right. The pattern will tell you to cut the strips in half. Once you have your half strips, keep them in the bundles. Keep them as a dark A, a dark B, a medium, and a light. Wonder clips are your friends for organizing. Post-it notes, and write out notes to keep yourself organized. Then the next thing I did was go through the whole pattern and figure out what sort of partners I needed and how many triangles I need to cut. So once I did that, I then pinned it and I created shortcut notes. Okay, wait, I'm going to fast forward ahead and then come back. You guys know the technique of how we're going to do this? Can you guess what we're going to do? Strip Tube Junior. Hey, A+ for the assist in the audience. Not even Strip Tube Senior, this one's going to be Strip Tube Junior. The technique of doing this, Does your sewing room look like this? I brought it. Okay, you want to hear something funny? Well, I don't actually. Might be more sad than funny. I know I had it here.
What's under your pattern? Yeah.
Under. So Strip Tube Junior is the preferred ruler for this pattern. Strip Tube Senior, the regular one, will also work. In my sewing room, I couldn't find Junior. So clearly, we're recreating my sewing room. I know, but it's oh. So I used the regular ruler because I couldn't find Junior in my sewing room. Junior is a lot easier to do because the size is much smaller. Senior will do everything Junior will do. But just like using a square up ruler, the smaller one is easier for the smaller cuts than the larger one. And I'm opening this because a ruler works best when you can see through it. Okay, so we are going to partner our groupings together. We're going to have a certain number of dark A with medium, a certain number of dark A with light, a certain number of dark B with medium, a certain number of dark B with light, a certain number of dark B with dark A, a certain number of medium with light, and a certain number of light with light. Got all that? Yeah? So the general technique is this. You're going to take two strips and sew them together to make what girls and boys? A tube. So these are two strips, right sides together, sewn a 1/4 inch seam along the top and along the bottom. Right sides together matters for most fabrics. For batiks, it doesn't. So you just make them happy, put them together, sew up and sew down. Then you take your strip tube ruler, or junior, because junior is much happier with the smaller cuts. You place the measurement line on the bottom stitching line, and you cut up and down to cut out a triangle. Cut up and down to cut out a triangle. Triangle looks a lot like this. And then you open up the triangle to create your half square triangle. Is that brilliant?
Brilliant.
Is that brilliant?
Brilliant.
Thank you. Now, I also cut off the dog ears. And you guys know the tip with cutting off the dog ears. You take the same measurement. You put the triangle the other way. So the opposite of how you just cut it. The same measurement on the same stitching line, and then you can whack off those little triangles on the end to cut off your dog ears.
I didn't know that.
Isn't that fabulous?
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's why you come. It's brilliant. All right. Next time you cut, all right, there's your guy. Next time you cut, well, we've just made this cut, right? So now we have that angle cut out of our tube. Now we need to cut off of the top stitching line. As I put my ruler, you'll notice it's the same angle. Still make fresh cuts, because you want your triangle to be based on the existing seam, not the seam from the prior block. So make fresh cuts, conserve fabric, but if you know us, you'll know that that cut is actually a little awkward. This is not a handy movement, this one especially. So here's my $10 tip. Take the tube, flip it over. This bottom stitching line is the same stitching line as it was on the top. Place a measurement, cut up and cut down, clean cuts, fresh cuts, make another half square triangle. So you're going to have a bunch of triangles that look like this. What are we going to do? Keep them organized. You need to keep them organized. So here are my notes. I need it. Pen. Clear, right? I went through the pattern and pulled out all the information I needed for my quilt size, and then I scribbled it down. So, dark A, I need 2 half strips. Dark B, 2. Medium, 4. Light, 4. And then the combinations together. I think these are full strips. Dark A plus medium, I need to make 3 tubes and cut out 20 triangles. I created all of this, and I made, because your best friends are painter's tape, wonder clips, and notes. You want to keep things grouped together and have them start grouped together, stay grouped together, and then when you start to put your stuff together, you know exactly where you're pulling from to create your block. Same shortcut here. Dark A plus light, 1 tube, 4 triangles. So I did this for each of the combinations, and I rattled off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different combinations. Once I have these, I have the strips placed together, I sew my tubes. If you're sewing more than 1 tube within a grouping, keep the tubes together. How do you do that, Daniela? You chain sew. So this is one tube, and right attached to it is another tube. Now, I've already had this tape here. Now I have these at my sewing machine. They stay together. I take a Wonder Clip. Do you guys know Wonder Clips? Yes. Do we love Wonder Clips? Yes. The trouble is, they're so handy, they don't necessarily stay just in the sewing room. So they'll end up all over the house organizing things. So now I have this grouping together, very beautifully organized. These are all, whoops. These are all my dark A and my lights. And once I have the tubes, I make all of my tubes, and then I go cut all of my half square triangles as groups. As soon as this tube is put together, I take the same painter's tape, put all of the half square triangles together with the clip. Now they stay as a group. So that is the key to this whole pattern, is just to stay organized. Yes, ma'am?
I'm confused about the cutting. It says in the
Let's go back a little bit and talk about the strip tube technique. So here's the strip tube ruler, and the pattern will tell you a horizontal measurement. So you find that measurement on your ruler and you put it on the bottom stitching line. It's so important to put it on the stitching line when we're doing the tube technique. Once you have it on your stitching line, you can cut up and down. That cuts out a triangle. It's not actually a triangle, it's half of a square. And that stitching line is the diagonal seam. So as soon as you've cut out a triangle, and the triangle looks like this, as soon as you have that cut out, you move it from your strip set. Now with this pattern, you may have to pull a couple stitches out from the very top. Yeah, just pop those right out. And then when you open that up, that triangle, which is half of a square, opens up to the size square that you need.
I was wondering what happened to the stitching.
They're little, and most of our patterns don't have the little stitches up top that you catch the top seam. Most of them fall just below, but this one you might have a couple stitches and you'll just pop those out. Does that help answer your question? Okay. All right, so we're organized. We have all of our pieces together. We have them in stacks. We're all ready to sew. The pattern has it mapped out. You can just look at the pattern. I've only used 4 colors in the pattern. 4. So that your eye can easily go to what is a dark, what is a medium, and what is a light. Arrange them in rectangles similar to this. Follow the diagrams, lay it out. Feel comfortable with the way that it looks, meaning how you like your fabrics together. It is okay if the same fabrics touch, because that creates a more powerful effect for the star. They don't all have to be the same when they touch. But keep all of your dark A's together and create a section like this. Once you have the layout that you like, when you piece it, you take the right one, you flip it over to the left side, then you take the second row, the right over to the left. This is going to be your sewing edge. If you keep it together like this, then you can grab the whole thing, go to your sewing machine, and chain sew. So now on the third row, right onto left, fourth row, right onto left. And you'll see that if you sew and you keep them together, they will stay in exactly the right order so that you are ready to sew the rows together, to sew the pieces together. So you'll just flip that onto that, put it that way, and sew. So then you sew your rows together. I don't know about you, but so many times I lay it out, flannel board, floor, couch, whatever, take it to the sewing machine, and between that point to that point, and you liked it so much when you laid it out, then it doesn't look as good when you sew it together. So here's a great piecing technique, and it's spelled out in the pattern. So here we have dark A. We're going to do the same concept, but dark B. By the way, do you see these? You ever seen these little design boards? This is Bee in My Bonnet, Lori Holt. I can have them all laid out, take it to the sewing machine, and then sew.
That's handy.
Very handy. Okay, so we've done the same thing now with dark B. You see the similarity?
Yep.
But that's not the block. We have to do one more thing before we can sew those two together. We take the dark B, and there's your block. So not hard, right? Do you believe me? Here's the block, completely finished, beautifully pressed. And I really like the batiks because they have more movement to them, a little more interest. They're a little more watercolory,
Yeah.
a little more blendy. So here I have 4 blocks. If I put them together so that all of the same darks are together, that was good. I like that. It was a really good reaction. So now here is the wall hanging, 2 by 2. This is the throw, 4 by 4. 4 by 4. You see it? Yeah. So as the blocks come together, 4 of them will come together to create one dark star, and then the corners will come together to create the other dark star. So it's just squares. Looks like a lot of triangles and a lot of work, but it's not. Organization is the key. Once you sew your rows together, then you'll add the borders. 1, 2, 3 borders in this quilt. And I can't decide with this one if I should keep going or if I should make it a wall hanging.
Yeah.
Keep going. So easy for you to say, right? We're that far, just keep going. Any questions? I sensed questions. Any questions? Did I help you? Did you follow the organization technique?
Yes.
Wonder clips and painter's tape. Keep them in your groupings. Keep them as your groupings as you go. Because let me tell you, when you go to put these little pieces together here, you can't remember if that grain was a medium or a light.
Yeah.
So you make all your decisions up front and then keep them organized, and then the assembly on the other end comes together. By the way, if you do mess up a little bit, it's not a big deal. You know, especially with this type of quilt. It's a very forgiving. Okay, it's got a lot of movement. Great. I'm glad I was a lit major. Thank you. Such the wordsmith. Did I see a hand up? Yes.
Show us the difference between the 2 rulers.
Oh, senior and junior. Stand by. Yeah, senior is bigger, junior is smaller. Oh, good. I'll show you this too. Here, I'll show you this side. So you can see 6.5 inches down to the bottom edge. This one is 9.5 inches. So this will let you cut a square that opens, a triangle that opens to a square as big as 9.5 inches. Now when we talk about 9.5 inches and 6.5 inches, these are cut sizes, but they are square cut sizes. So these rulers are not triangle rulers. They are square rulers. They just happen to be half of a square. The measurements along the edges here, these are square measurements. Different than that. Nope, you may not use that ruler. And not because it's not mine.
I know, but why not?
This is a triangle ruler. This will give you completely different measurements. So really, you could use a square up ruler better than you could use a ruler that looks like this, that is a triangle ruler. Mm-hmm.
So the square up ruler like a 5.5 inch
Mm-hmm.
square?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But a square up ruler has the right dimensions across the edges. It does not have the lines going in the right way. A square up ruler will have the grid lines going this way and this way, but it's actually the line here going this direction that you want to put on your stitching line. So if you don't have that line on your stitching line, then you're working off of just 2 hash marks on the corners, which you can do. And we have patterns that are written without even mentioning the strip tube ruler, because we did this technique first, and then my mom said to me, Daniela, you should make a ruler. And I said, oh, really? And then the next day, a customer said to me, have you ever thought of making a ruler to make that easier? So ignore what my mom said, right? And be like, really? Do you think so? But it was originally my mom's idea, so it's all her fault. And we have to keep making more and more and more and more. So between you and me, we call it the damn ruler. But in a loving way. Yeah. So Junior, it does everything in smaller cuts. Same concept exactly. So if you're only going to get one, get Senior until you realize you really need Junior, then you can go out and get Junior. Or you can just get both to begin with. We have a ton of patterns that use Ted's technique. Last month, we used this ruler, but we didn't make a tube. You remember? Right. The pattern was Simplicity here on the wall. Go back and watch the video. Comment below. I've always wanted to do that. Nice comments. Okay. Any questions? Yes?
Are all your videos on the website, like for resource for later?
Most of our strip club presentations are videotaped, and then we post them on the YouTube channel. Look for Cozy Quilt Designs. There was a time there we didn't even think to do videos. And then there was a time that I took a break for a little bit, but now we're back. If you look way back, way back, the second video we ever made, and you'd think we filmed in a barn. Now, we live in Southern California. We don't have a whole lot of flying bugs, right? But that day, there were 3 flies, and they sort of converted right between me and the video camera. So it's so distracting to see these like 3 flies right there for the entire presentation. So, you know, we're a little homespun when we do our videos, but now we have professional help. Yeah. They told me I'd need professional help for a while. I want to show you one quilt, and then we can wrap this up for the day. This is the same fabric collection, the one I'm playing with up on the wall right here. This is a Bally Pop by Hoffman, if I could only remember the name of it. Citrus Grove. So this is what the Bally Pop looks like. Poppy. Poppy because there's only 20 bundles in it. 20 strips. I live a very good life, and I get to work with a lot of fabric companies. Timeless, of course. I make batiks with Timeless. And then every once in a while I get to make a quilt for some other fabric companies, and we made this one for Hoffman out of, I believe, that same collection. So I wanted you to see what that fabric looks like in a different colorway. I'm thinking as tall as I can. So do you see the same fabrics?
Yes.
This is called Drop Diamonds. And if you look closely at the border, they are pigs.
Oh,
We
yes.
got, it's like farm animals. We got pigs, and I think rabbits, and a duck.
Goat.
Oh, that's what it is.
Isn't that funny? So actually, in this sample here on the wall, it's this print. Do you see a pig butt? Yeah. Yeah, there's a pig butt. Hey, here's a butterfly. Bacon. All right, my friends, if you don't have any more questions, we'll call it a day. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. Join us next month, and we'll have another presentation that uses 2.5-inch strips.